Hello, and welcome to Birth Through the Veil. I'm Melissa Camrudin, and today Liz Tracy is with me to discuss her work in bringing reverence to pregnancy release. Liz shares her own journey with abortion and reproductive sovereignty, and this as the catalyst that has brought her into this work of bringing light to the dark side of motherhood, the things we're not supposed to talk about. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Liz, you go by Liz, yes?
Yeah. Full name is Elizabeth Tracy, but go by Liz. So that's perfect.
Yeah. How are things for you? You're in the midst of this. It must be getting intense with planning for with daughters.
Yeah. I've been helping Amanda this year, kind of the role, a midwife of sorts in the realm of operations and logistics and things like that. So yeah, I was just sharing this with her the other day that I cannot believe how fast the time has flown from like when I stepped in to start supporting in October, when she was just starting to open the doors again of like, okay, are there women that can support in these different roles? And I reached out and we've been working together since then in this next iteration of 2025's festival. And it just is like flown. I mean, time in general has just been very fast lately, but it's wild. Like, and for me also, it's my first experience supporting in the back end of a festival, and to see all of the things and just something at this scale. And it's like bigger than it was, in the last few years. Yeah. And so there's just so many pieces to tend to. Right. So it's been quite a ride, and yes, things are ramping up. It's like, I can like feel the energy now,
Yeah.
It's so close. Yeah. It's so exciting.
It really is. Yeah. It's starting to feel like that. Like, ooh, I have to start thinking about, even just like logistics, like camping supplies. I need to start getting on that.
Exactly.
Yes.
You're based in Canada, right?
Yep. I'm in Vancouver, Richmond.
Nice. Okay.
Vancouver. Where are you?
I'm from the US.
Okay.
It's so funny how I got connected with this festival. But I live in Colombia, in Medellin, in South America.
Oh
now.
yeah.
So I'm far. But yeah.
How did you get connected? Into this festival?
Through Jasmine Rose. I was in her womb wisdom school, year-long, like group container. And yeah, she had shared that she was going to be, holding workshops at the festival. This was last year. And some other women that I knew in that container were also going to be going. And it just aligned perfectly with other travels and things. And so, even in one of Jasmine's sessions, the like vulva gazing experience, she had some of us that were in that container because we had finished at that point, right? And she had us. It was like there are so many women at that. I don't know if you were at that. Yeah. And so we did like some breakout groups and invited us to kind of lead a little bit some of the little breakout space. So powerful.
Oh, nice.
Powerful session.
So you've been coming from Colombia, did you say, like for this festival?
Yeah.
Twice?
So I've kind of aligned it so that, travels in the summer and other things that I'm doing are also around that time. But I'll be traveling from Colombia, but making it, a whole like several month trip and see people and things like that. So
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty powerful thing. It really epic last year. That was my first time going to any sort of festival like that.
Yeah.
Especially with just all women.
So
it was
totally
really awesome.
Same.
I'm looking forward to it again.
Yeah. And you'll hold 2 workshops, right?
I think it's one now.
Just
so it
one
was
now?
2.
Okay.
And then Amanda emailed me and she had missed putting someone in the schedule. So so we took one out. So the workshop that I think the one that I'm going to bring now is the true prenatal care one. So what's it like if it's not your blood pressure and your ultrasounds, which are like fine if that's what you want. But like, what is it? What is the work that pregnancy and birth is going to call out of us?
Totally.
That's
Absolutely.
what it is. And it's, of course, it's the inner work, right? It's the
Oh, yeah.
inside. It's the connection to your intuition. It's the calling forth the mother that you'll need to be for whatever child you're gestating and birthing.
Yes.
And then practically, how do we access that? Like, that's like all cool to say, right?
Yeah.
And but like, what do you do? What do you do? How do you
Right.
get there? Mhm.
Totally.
So
I
that'll
love
be,
that.
yeah. Tell me, what are you bringing to Earth Daughters?
I am bringing an offering called Unseen Mother.
Mm.
And so it's an offering specifically for women who have been through pregnancy release, like intentional pregnancy release and abortion experiences. So this will be a space really like a weaving of somatic ceremony and embodied storytelling circle to be first with, kind of in recognition of the ways that anytime we become pregnant, right, we touch this mother experience energetically, hormonally, physiologically, things are shifting. And every pregnancy ends in a birth, right? Whether it is a full term,
For
whether
sure.
it's a loss and a miscarriage, whether it's a chosen ending and a release. So just really being with first that sense of like mother and all of these expressions, experiences, ways we can touch mother and that mother touches us in these really profound initiatory experiences of womanhood that really you only really know once you've walked through them. And so just being in the kind of validation, the seeing, the acknowledgement of these different unique ways that a woman and the women that come to this workshop experienced mother, or perhaps had these, experiences in these first few weeks of pregnancy, but then also really holding space for when a woman knows that the answer is no at that time for her and chooses that intentional release. There's also this other, in how I see it, like this other way that we touch or embody mother. And it's almost this like shadow or dark mother in the sense that it's not often talked about, right? Or that these are experiences that often remain in the shadows or unseen or untold in their fullness, right? Like at least before, and this is all coming from my own experience of walking through pregnancy release, but like before I ever got pregnant, I never even really put that together of like someone that's having an abortion and this experience of mother, right? I don't think that's not something that we really connect in the collective consciousness. And so just for me, walking through that experience and all the ways that it touched me and I let it touch me, and to be in the depths of all of that and what that decision really meant, it was this kind of initiatory moment into this own unique like embodiment of mother in my own life. And so also just being in the, like I said, that recognition of this like archetype of dark mother, the one that is like tending to the whole garden or life or vision or whatever it is. And sometimes that means like confronting and being with death, right? Or the ending or the release. And so also really anchoring into like us as cyclic beings, as women, and touching the growing, the sustaining that happens every cycle, and then the release and the shedding and the letting go that happens every cycle. So we can see it in all these different ways. But, pregnancy release specifically, it's a really, there's like complex, nuanced, experience decision. And yeah, so just like really holding so much open space for all the different ways that a woman has interacted with that and how it's touched her. And then how it's also like, there in the woman that she's becoming each and every day. And so, yeah, that's really the intention of that space, is to like be in the embodied storytelling from the womb, if there's a story that wants to come through, or just sitting in that recognition, right, of like mother, these unseen aspects of mother. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm really appreciating as I've heard quite a few people describe their offerings now just
Yeah.
through these podcast stories. And there's so many um, offerings that are coming up. I kind of am hating that word right now, and I don't have another one. So that's my hesitation. I don't know what else to say, but we all know what we mean. So, okay. So like these offerings that people are bringing, they are so many are things we don't talk about. The taboo things, the things we're not supposed to celebrate, the things we're supposed to be quiet about and like not upset anyone. And there's so much opportunity for that coming up at this festival. In particular, I'm seeing more than at least I noticed last year, even like there's like a lot of depth to what you're being invited into there if you want to, right? That there's because these are like things we maybe don't think about until they touch our lives, and then you're not supposed to, right? Are we supposed to, you're not supposed to celebrate motherhood in certain scenarios, right? We just passed Mother's Day, and I often think like I have 5 children all living. It's like I'm so lucky in that way, and I get very obviously celebrated on Mother's Day, right? But I'm not the only kind of mother that there is, right? I have friends who have no living babies, who have like only spirit babies, who have, and like you said, every pregnancy ends in a birth. And I wonder sometimes, like, I'm gonna leave that part, but
there's a lot we could go into. I know,
like, I don't know if I want to, but every pregnancy ending in a birth means there's a mother to be celebrated there. There's a woman that was born through that, who may have a story she may or may not wish to tell. And I'm really interested in hearing those stories.
I love how you phrase that. It's true. The woman that is born through any experience of pregnancy, which then ends in birth, right? Like, and I've always felt like I've oriented that way. I mean, I am training in kind of, you could say, birth work here in Colombia. It's with a traditional midwife. Midwives here are completely outside the system. So it's like a doula training, but it's not really doula in the same way that maybe in North America or different things would be understood. A lot of learning ancestral, like wisdom keeping and outside of the system, and all these like really holistic ways of tending birth and the threshold and all of it. And so anyway, just like being steeped in that training right now as well. And just really my whole life, like feeling this affinity towards pregnancy, birth, the portal, the threshold that women go through. And truly the thing that has always captivated me is this knowing is like, it's the woman, like what's happening with the woman on the other side. Who is she being birthed into? I mean, of course, right? There's this new life coming in and tending all of this. And there's so much around that, but I don't know, for me, there's always been a particular focus around the woman and all the identity, right? Like death that happens even when we find out we're pregnant, when we want it as well, right? It's like this continual, I can imagine you going through this, right? 5 times, like the continual shedding and entering into a new threshold of your own womanhood, and meeting yourself in new ways, and what that spirit baby and then coming into physical form in your own body is asking of you in that exact moment, so just really, I think, recognizing the ways that, the woman is birthed into a new expression of self. And exactly like you said, celebrating that, acknowledging it, or holding space if there's grief around that too, right? Because whether it is a release or a loss or an actual live full-term birth, like there can also be so much grief on the other side of who was I before and all of that. Yeah.
There's so much opportunity there for discussion. I like how you describe that, the dark mother, and or just thinking of like the dark side, maybe just that we don't talk about of birth, right? Of birthing live babies and letting the maiden go every time another piece of her has to go to make room for who you're going to become.
Almost like, I mean, I've never thought of it this way, but just in being with you here and having 5 children, I can imagine there's like, it's like initiating you into deeper motherhood each and every time, like a spiral, deeper and deeper.
Yeah. And like Jane Hardwick Collins talks about each birth initiating you into the mother you need to be for that child. Too, right? Like, and she had said that that each birth showed her how to mother the child that she birthed at that time. And so when she reflects on the birth lessons, right, that's what it is. And yeah. And so like, man, there's so much fodder there. If every pregnancy ends in a birth and a lesson, um,
Mhm.
we're mothering. I mean, I think you can mother babies that aren't with you in physical
Mm.
form, and ourselves. We're also mothering ourselves. We're
Mhm.
getting an opportunity to look back at places we weren't mothered or places we were mothered really well and filling in the gaps or
Yeah.
choosing to embody the gifts that we were given from our own mothers. Like all of that's there
Yeah.
regardless of the outcome of your birth.
Absolutely. And yeah, feeling into the different things we can mother. And for
Mm,
me too, when I say that word and feel that word and have been in my own embodied like journey with that word, to me, it also speaks to a recognition of the great power we
mm,
hold and like walking in that embodied relationship with that power and the recognition of, wow, I can steward life and death through
mm.
my body. I can, again, in all these different experiences of pregnancy and kinds of birth, we touch that and can understand that in different ways. But it's that power and also this great responsibility that we're actually walking with, and it being this like sacred, holy responsibility to um, yeah, like walk in right relationship with the power that we hold, and that is so different for each woman, right? But it's like
Yeah.
really being in that, going to the depths of self to be with the truth, right?
Yeah. It connects also to the knowing that we all enter the mother archetype, that even if you never experience a pregnancy or a birth, we all enter that archetype,
Mhm.
and we're
Mhm.
all like, we all have that juju for
Mhm.
birthing ideas and creative processes.
Exactly.
And yeah, we're invited into that same kind of relationship, that same kind of spiritual connection if we want it,
Totally.
in
Yes,
whatever it
and
is we're
that's
birthing
it.
as we move through our mothering phase of our cyclical
Yeah.
nature.
And what you said there too, I think is really important. Of like, if we want it, there's a certain, it's a choice point, and it's like this, there is a maturity in the sense of like being with self, right? And walking with
Mhm.
self and like saying yes to the things that, like looking at the dark side of things potentially in certain moments, right? Or being with the depths of experience and full spectrum of womanhood that can be, And so I think there's something there in like the responsibility, which I think we can also have like a negative connotation around,
Mhm.
when really, right, we talk about it's like this ability to respond. It's like being with our full capacity ability to respond to the present moment, what's here and
Yes.
what's the decision that needs to be made. And like we make the decision and we stand
Mhm.
by it and in it with it,
That's
So
responsibility,
exactly.
actually. Its
Yeah.
definition.
Right.
Mhm.
Totally.
Yeah, how did
Totally.
you come into this work? What was your path here?
Okay, so I'll share like, briefly my own experience with getting pregnant and choosing
Mm,
release. That happened in 2021. And it was a time where I had started like connecting with my womb and like these
mm,
embodiment practices, and had an IUD, and even before that was like 10 years of hormonal birth control on the pill, like all these things, right?
mhm.
Feeling like, I guess, tracking my story now, there was a lot of fear of getting pregnant ingrained, which
Mhm.
is true, I think, in many of our stories, fear around
Oh, yeah.
fertility in general, whether it's getting pregnant or not being able to get pregnant, right? That's the other
Mhm.
side. So anyway, just like going on the pill, being on the pill, and slowly starting to be in this journey of connection with womb, connection with body, opening up this dialogue, and actually starting to hear like, no, I don't want like hormones. And also having an IUD like inside of my body does not feel right.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was like maybe middle of the year in 2021 when I decided, okay, I'm going to take this IUD out, uh, and was interested in starting to explore fertility awareness method, because like I had heard about it, but didn't have any like resources really
Mm,
around it then. I had listened to like a couple of podcasts, had a little bit of information, but I also had this like kind of spirit or energy of like, I don't need the system. It was starting to be in this like, fuck the system kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, I can do it myself, take it into my own hands, which is a real, again, kind of seeing it through the lens of maiden. There's all these ways we can be in like reclamation of our bodies. And in that moment, it was, looking back in a really maiden way, because it was like, I'm just going to do it and figure it out. Right. When actually there are like pieces to have in place or understand, like if you want to be practicing fertility awareness method, for example. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to, a little bit rebellious, right? Like I'm going to just do this on my own, and, had the thermometer, but wasn't, tracking here and there, and was like, only had notions of certain things, right? It wasn't a really robust understanding. And at that time, then we're getting into the fall, and started seeing someone, and like there was this moment in how I was tracking, that there was like a little bit of an oops, but I took plan B. And so it seemed like it would be fine. I also didn't know then that plan B only worked when you take it, insert like before you ovulate and all the things that they don't tell you. So I thought, I was like, okay, there's an oops, but I think we're good. And then a couple weeks later, missing period. I was like, this is really weird. And even when I go back and track, there's a little bit where I was like, there's a little bit of mystery, as there often is in these moments of, pregnancy, conception, things like this. I was like, in some senses, I look back and I could have been fine, but then, this just happened and was meant to happen, and, trusting that. So in that moment, I was like, it was this huge, emotional experience, this realization, this like so many things hitting me at once. And immediately started to feel this shift in my body, right? And the energetic space around me as well. And, I grew up in, I would say, spaces of like more liberal feminist, right? Where I knew other women who had gotten abortions. And so it was this kind of normalized thing that I think you see when, like, it's such obviously a politicized topic, but for me, this like liberal feminist, like just, or the Planned Parenthood, again, my own experience with it, but like abortion going in and it being something like, it's like a heavy period, and then you go home and you could go to work in the next couple of days, and like you could do, it's like self-managed and you're fine, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, that can exist. And so there was a little bit of this energy of, before I ever got pregnant, of like, oh, if this happened and I didn't want to be pregnant, I would just get an abortion. And yeah. And once I was in the experience, it was a whole other thing. It was like, this is no small thing. And you need to take the time and the awareness to truly, truly, again, go to the depths of self to be with what actually is the answer. Because everything is like what you thought you knew about anything, it's out the window. You are now a new woman. And I have chills saying that. And so I like really allowed myself to go into that, right? And be with all of the options. And what happened in those weeks, right? I mean, we kind of like scheduled an appointment so that we had it at a clinic. And then in that time leading, like waiting for the appointment to come, I was just like in the process of the inquiry, right? And in that time, those couple of weeks, I like really, the visceral experience of mother is really the only way I can explain it, right? Of feeling the way the body changes, the energetic shifts. There was something that felt like I was getting a peak, or again, an initiation, I guess, into like a whole other realm of womanhood. I was like, oh, this is what it means. Or like, I'm like tasting a new flavor of womanhood, And that also like awakened a lot of things in me. There was a lot that actually felt like alive, right? Or resonant, especially knowing that like I've always wanted to have children, in my life. And it was holding that and this real truth when I sat with it, in those moments in the quiet of, this is a no right now. And like that being this unwavering truth that was emerging from within me. And so going through that process, right, and deciding to end the pregnancy and be in that, and the postpartum time and everything, like even not even knowing that was like a postpartum time at the time. The biggest thing was really like holding those seeming opposites together. And that also led to a lot of, I would say, at the time it was like anger and frustration and disappointment that like no one's talking about this. Even at the clinic, it was like, it'll be like a heavy period. And it was like, this is not that. This is not that. And it actually felt almost, I was like, a part of me was like offended actually, because I was like, this is actually so sacred that it deserves. And that's why I sat with it in the way that I did in the decision leading up to it, that now also in the release experience, like to do the ritual and the ceremony and be, with like ancestors or the earth and offering it back to the earth and being in this own kind of burial in a sense, right? And in these ceremonies that we need through all these kinds of rites of passage, or threshold moments, that was like my way of trying to, I think bring, it wasn't just healing, but like weave the spirit element through in such an experience that felt like it could be so kind of cold, or like take the pills, like. And now there's all these things that I've learned since then around working with different plant allies, and in particular to prevent pregnancy as well, right? But I didn't know anything like that then, and so it was like a quite cold experience, I would say. So interestingly, like that happened, right? And then I had all this fear of like this ever happening again, because I was like, I don't want this to ever happen again. And so I went back to the clinic and got the copper IUD in. And looking back, I was like, oh my God, why did I do that? But it's the moment, and fear is such a powerful motivator, and it can be so ingrained. I think in our womb, fear, like I said, around fertility can be it can be really, really big. So I went back to the clinic, got the IUD in, even though part of me was like an obvious no to it, and had that for like maybe a little bit, about like less than a year, at which point I was like, no, I was like studying, again, like I said, actually resourcing myself around fertility awareness method and working with different plant allies to prevent pregnancy, particularly to feel really like almost like to regain that trust in self. Because it's not just learning the information either. It's having an embodied trust in the self of like, I can actually implement this. And if something happens, I have these other pieces, right? So that takes time. And so it was like in this unwinding. And then I was finally like, no, it's time. This IUD, I know that my womb does not want this in her. And again, I was like, oh God, I have to go back to like the clinic, have a doctor take this out. I was at this point in Colombia, and I was like, I don't know, have a gynecologist here or anything. And then I started to research women that had done it themselves. I started to read about it. I was like, wait, this is actually like, I could do this. And that doesn't mean that it was easy by any means, because I'm really sensitive. I mean, I think anytime, right, we're like sticking something through our cervix, that's intense. So it was a really intense, visceral, raw experience, but I was like prepared myself. It was like 6 hours and just like ceremony before, like my partner, he came home. I was like, okay, this is happening. I'm doing it. Can you like help me? It truly felt like a little bit like a taste of a birth, because it was also closing the loop from after, in that postpartum time after the abortion. And oh my gosh, for me to like really gather up the courage and the strength and the like within self to hold those strings and pull them out long enough that it would like come out, that took time for me to work up to that. But I was like, I do not want anyone else doing this. It's by my own hands. It's at my own hands. And I'm taking my fertility and the stewardship of that fertility back into my own hands, So that was a big part of the story as well. So that's like, right, the personal story and walking in all of this. And so I had been like working kind of in womb work and supporting women, and kind of more with like somatic practices with the womb and pelvic space as well. But this really initiated me more into like specifically around reproductive sovereignty, tending to women in these thresholds when they are pregnant and they're not sure if they want to be, to hold that space, right around their decision making or emotional support through the process, or tending in that postpartum time, or in the oops, right, in like preventing pregnancy, and actually building that awareness of and literacy that like we can do that, right? So yeah, weaving that. I'm not sure if you've heard of Kiddis Dashe. She's one of my teachers in this realm. Yeah. So in like the womb room, which is now called the Holy Well, and have started to support in teaching one of her courses, the Sovereign Cycle. So like holding some space there with another woman that also does this work with me. And then in the training that I'm in right now as well, like to support women in, pregnancy and birth and postpartum, that I'm studying with this traditional midwife here, to start to weave in like that other aspect, right? Of motherhood, pregnancy, birth, all of that.
What a beautiful collection of wisdom you're gathering.
Thank you.
I really think often about that piece for our pro-choice abortion advocacy, and how in my opinion, like the pendulum has swung so far in a way that I don't think serves women, and really, like from what you're describing, didn't serve you. And sort of like, if we make it all sterile, then it's not a problem, and we just avoid any pain that would be associated, like emotional pain. And that's a theme in our culture, right? Where we avoid like the dark mother, like you said, we avoid death. We don't see people, we send people away to die.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it when someone dies, or when you have a miscarriage, or when you don't tell anyone you're pregnant until you're past the risk of miscarriage. So you can suffer alone.
Yes.
That's where we're at in our culture. And a thought that if you're pro-choice, we have to go and be like, it's not a baby, it's not a spirit, it's not an anything, it's a heavy period.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's how it feels for someone.
Yes.
And of course, all experiences are valid and fine. But I would say almost every woman I've spoken, most women I've spoken to who've experienced a release or an abortion, intentional or otherwise, it feels like more than that. It feels like more acknowledgement needed to happen there.
Yeah.
And what a gift that would be. Hey, to women, to think if you could bring someone to walk that with you, who's walked it before, and bring those pieces in and acknowledge what's happening. Like because we're soulful beings. Nothing is ever just happening to our bodies, ever. I don't think it's anything. I actually no longer think you get a cold that is directly related to, I don't know, hanging out with someone else with a cold. Like, that's not it. That's not it. There's more. There's always more. And especially when it comes to reproduction and our bodies and our cycles.
Yeah.
They're so sacred.
They are. There's so much mystery inherent in it.
Yes. Yes. I just recorded another podcast with someone yesterday, and it's a lot of the same themes are popping up between your two stories, which is just really interesting. Like that thought of holding, I kept saying holding duality yesterday, and she's like, well, it's not duality because there's not even two, right? It's not like we're like one or the other. It's like, I don't even, like, it's like holding multitudes, like holding all the contradictory things that you think can exist at the same time, but they do. And like, that's actually life. And that is womanhood. And that is motherhood, is holding all the contradictions of the thing. Like, just like the basics that we all joke about the, like, I've never loved anyone so much and wanted to hang out with them so much, and also wanted to pee alone so badly. Like, just have a moment alone, right? There's a contradiction, and it's true. They're both true. And that's just like a little funny example. But that's what it is. Like, maybe that's one of our gifts as women is being able to hold all those things at once, to be like the bearer of multitudes and like the nervous system for the family who can hold it.
And just to add to that, really feels like the medicine that's most needed in these times as things are getting more and more and more and more polarized. And even in like the wellness spaces, right, we can see it and it's like, it's this or it's that. And we're needing, and I think it's women that can hold the multitudes, even just thinking about the multitudes of what we experience through a cycle and the multitudes we're asked to hold in motherhood. It's like really bringing through that, if you will, like kind of feminine wisdom, the medicine that is inherent in womanhood, right? Like that feels like the medicine that the world needs, right? Like at this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you think of like estrogen being the hormone of accommodation, and that like that's a piece of a gift that we bring, is that Wapio says she has this lecture she calls like something about like how we can know everything, which sounds like I know absolutely everything. You're going to learn absolutely everything in this course. And the way you're knowing absolutely everything is because you're entering it with curiosity. And there's nothing that is not understandable, because people come, it might seem like people are very different than you. It might seem like they have totally different thoughts, but I bet there's a really good chance they actually want the same things you do. And they just have a different idea of how to get there. And so can we enter that with curiosity, right? And compassion, and be like, I can see how you arrived at that conclusion. I can see why you made those choices.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The bridging.
Yeah. And it's those like difficult things we go through and stages of motherhood for sure, that I think invite us into that sort of compassionate, curious realization that we know everything and nothing all at once.
Again, the multitude. Exactly. That is it. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, what are some of your, like just some favorite reproductive sovereignty nuggets of wisdom or herbs? I love herbs.
Oh my gosh. That's such a good
lights you up right now?
Oof, yeah. When you asked that question, I felt this like sparkle within.
I saw it.
Yeah. I think it's worth it to kind of just mention again what I mentioned in my story, but so it can really land, because it feels like such a big piece of the whole thing, which is we can learn all the information and have it. Even like tracking our cycle can be another thing to do well or to get perfect so that we don't get pregnant. Like, again, we're talking in the sense of not wanting to get pregnant, right? So like making sure that we're on it and perfect. And it can be this, like the way that we're coming at it can be this strict or fear-based or not wanting to get it wrong kind of thing, right? And so one thing is having all the information or even knowing about the plants. Another thing is like really being with, I think really it's a simple inquiry of like, with what energy am I coming to this? And just gentle curiosity around like, is there fear here? Or perhaps there's other things. But I think the like fear of getting pregnant, just in the conversations I've had with women, can be so deeply like anchored in, like hooked in for good
It's also
reason.
just a shame connection in our culture around it. Like that's been my experience. Even being not married and having that fear, and now being married, I still have that fear and a shame piece of like, oh my God, what if there were 6? We would get so much judgment. Right?
Yeah.
External
on
judgment.
either side. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a darkness to that. I don't know, whatever intensity is held around that, like, you cannot get pregnant. Cannot mess this up.
Yes. Right. And so that for me feels like a foundational piece because it affects everything of then what we do with the information that we have. and also how we're just like living our lives and being in relationship with our body, and in that moment of having sex, and okay, I know I'm not in my fertile window and I want to have sex without a condom, and but can I, it just affects all these little and big moments of ways that we're walking through the world. Um so that would be a big piece of just like an inquiry around another good question is like, what was I taught about my fertility, or what did I see? What did I hear other women talking about when I was younger? My mom, aunts, different things. What message did I get? Like if I were to have gotten pregnant in a like less ideal, whatever situation, or a not planned situation. Yeah, being an inquiry, I think really about with our fertility, and like, what is my relationship with my fertility, and what do I associate that word with? Um, if, when we look at fertility being like just life force, and the fact that there has been so much fear, messaging, like conditioning, etc., around that, like I said, on both sides, then we start to like see these deeper ways that we have been cut off from this incredible power, like we said, to bring in, gestate, steward life as women, and also the power that we have to choose to release, and this like life force, and like fertility as creativity, as sensuality, as all these things, right? Like, and so if there's fear around that, then there's a cutting off or a disconnection from all these other pieces of womanhood. So it feels to me of like getting in this relationship, embodied relationship with fertility is massive, especially when we're talking about like reproductive sovereignty, and also just how we walk as a woman. So that's a many layered and complex kind of first foundational thing. But
it's a beautiful invitation.
yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm 39, and I'm just starting to like invite an intimate relationship with my fertility and my cycle in for myself. Like, of like conscious cycle tracking, like for a purpose, but also for like relationship with my body.
Yeah.
And knowing that signs of fertility are signs of health, right? Like,
Yes,
I actually don't
exactly.
want those to go away. Even though
Vitality.
we're not planning any more children, but that's not its only purpose. That isn't
Right.
even like most cycles don't result in pregnancy, right? Like, how many times in a lifetime does a cycle result in pregnancy? Well, not that many for most of us, right?
Exactly.
That there's so much more to it.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that I would say would be the first thing to be with. And then, let me see, because there's so much information we could explore. But I think the other piece that's somewhat related to that is then when we can work with different plants. And I'm happy to share what some of those could be. It's also about like what relationship we have with them. There is so much we can learn about herbal actions and the properties of a plant and how to work with it. And in the same way, like I don't know, like we were saying, there's so much mystery inherently woven in life in general, but especially in these moments of working with the womb and a reproductive care, and that threshold of like wanting to prevent a pregnancy or potentially release. So like I've seen experiences where someone doesn't even need to take a full dose of something, or rather they just like drop some of the tincture over their womb, and that can initiate, if there's like this connection, energetic relationship with that plant, that can initiate something, right? And so just really feeling the power of intention in how we're working with these plants. So yeah, some of the kind of go-to main ones that are supportive, particularly in this like oops period before a missed period, would be Queen Anne's lace. I'm not sure if you've heard of Queen Anne's lace. And
it grows right outside my house.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
Yeah.
It's the seed, right? Queen Anne's lace.
Exactly.
The seed, yeah.
Yeah, the seed that after like the flowering head, then the seed. And so harvest is usually, I think, like September or so, right? Like in the fall.
Yeah. I harvested a bunch last year to tincture. And then this is like classic me, like forgot about it. Or like, I'm like, I kind of get halfway into my projects. Then I'm like, and then another one arose. And then I'm like, oh,
yes.
So didn't get it tinctured last year.
Theoretically, you can still have, if you have the seeds and they're dried.
I probably do. Yeah, yeah, that's right. You can eat
wet.
them.
Yeah,
actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the seeds. So that would be a go-to, I think, in that oops period, because it works like affecting levels of progesterone, and progesterone is what we're looking at. Progesterone is the progestation. That's the hormone that is holding the uterine lining in place so that there can be pregnancy that continues, right? So just like looking at things that, that's kind of things, how to orient, right? To look at. And yeah, I would say, cotton root bark just generally, herbs that are amenagogues. That's just herbs that support to bring on the bleed. That's what that word means. And so, women have worked with those kinds of herbs for all of history, not just in these kinds of situations, right? But in like a delayed menses or irregular, cycles or things like that. So cotton root bark just has a history of that, particularly in the South of the US. And yeah. So, and it's a really beautiful herb, like with an affinity, the womb. And yeah. So those are a couple. Yeah. I could go more into it, but yeah, I'm curious about other things.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do I have here? We actually touched on like all the things.
Amazing.
I had written down there. Why don't we tell me, it sounds like you're into herbs in general. Is that kind of a thing for you? Okay, tell me, how about like...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, tell me one of your favorite herbs, like when you're thinking of your soul sister herb today. What is she? Who is she?
That's so funny. Well, I was just going to say too, that like really mine, let's say, stepping into the plant ally, like herbal world has really been through the reproductive care, reproductive sovereignty work first. And just in this, especially in this training here with the midwife, I've been learning a lot about the herbs local here too, because that's the other thing. Like I've learned with women who teach in the US or Canada, and it's like, I don't always find those herbs here. And I think there is a really deep, beautiful quality of working with the herbs that are around you, right? And like learning those particular medicines too, of like, what would the women here use for certain things, et cetera. So I feel I'm still very much in like just learning and exploring and all the things, right? But one I have been feeling really sweet affinity with recently is motherwort. That doesn't grow here, but I've brought it from the US, just that gentle, like beautiful for the nervous system and gentle mothering quality. The scientific name is like it's like a Leonaris cardiaca, something like that. So just like the lion heart, mother, lion heart, courage, like courage is
postpartum, and I really loved it. Felt like a hug.
It's like they call it the herb that like mothers the mother, right?
Isn't that just what you need? That's perfect.
Exactly.
I love that.
It feels like it feels really true. It's been really present recently, and it feels perfect for our conversation today too,
It does. Yeah. It does. Now I feel like I need to grow some. I'm just like have a couple spots in my garden where I could put something. I'm like, oh, why isn't that in there? That would grow. Yeah. I do too. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for talking to me today. I'm really looking forward to connecting at Earth Daughters and meeting you officially. I don't know if we met last year. There were so many people.
I know. I don't. I mean, you look familiar, of course. Yeah. But I don't think we did. But I know we will now.
We sure will. We're going to make sure.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be great. Me too.
Wow. Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate you just creating this space and in the invitation for the telling of the stories and all of those aspects of motherhood.
It's in my experience, I've learned so much through hearing other women's stories. And so I continue to learn just by talking to women on my podcast. And I love just creating a repository of wisdom and stories for women to check in with whenever they want to. That feels like soul contract work for me right now.
Yeah.
So I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thanks for listening. You can head to Instagram and birth.throughtheveil to see birth pictures or just pictures from each episode. The show notes have links and more ways to connect, along with the link to submit your birth story. I would love to hear it. New episodes of Through the Veil come out every other Tuesday. You can follow, subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast to be in support. Until next time.